Good noon, everyone. Myself, Vinod, and I'm working for SRD, and today I'm presenting on behalf of my other colleagues. So before going further, I want to discuss with you some water-related issues, and of course, you are listening about these issues since yesterday. Like climate change, what's going to happen, and you might have been heard about the rainfall reduction over next 50 years or so, and that is linked to cuts in irrigation allocation, because irrigation is very crucial component for the vineyards and for all other irrigated horticultural crops. So, and also you might have heard in the last week, government announced the allocation for the next year, and it is 30%. So, how to just manage your resources? I will show you some of these scenarios in my presentation. And also the salinity is a big issue. River water salinity, it fluctuates, and there are predictions that salinity in next 50 years, it would be about 800 EC point at Morgan. So that is the upper threshold for the salinity. So it's not good. So what should we do for that in terms of vineyards? And also in some of the locations, probably not on the Riverland, some other locations like McLeanville, and also in the mid-north, some of the growers, they are using reclaimed water, and the reclaimed water also has a lot of salts. So how we can manage those things? And in the last couple of decades, there's a lot of work has been done on deficit irrigation in vineyards, and there are different strategies and technologies. If there is less water, how to manage that, and most important in them, there is the sustainable deficit irrigation and regulated deficit irrigation. So how we can manage how the vineyards and plant behave under those conditions in terms of salinity. So keeping in view in all these things, I'm just today talking about 6 virtual farmers scenarios. So my first farmer, that has he's really a fortunate fellow. So he has good quality water over a decade. He is applying good quality and at the optimum level. And the second one is he is not so fortunate. He has just less amount of water available for him, so he is applying 10% less of the optimum level for a decade. So what's going to happen in terms of salinity and water balance? Third is applying 20% less. So this is also called the sustainable deficit irrigation. So these are the 3, and the other 3, they are really less fortunate. Fourth one has the full irrigation, of course, but the salinity is quite high. That is at the upper threshold, 0.8 decisiemon or 800 EC points. The next one has 50% less water during drought period. So this modeling that I'm showing today, this goes during the millennium drought period. So if a farmer has less water during those 2-3 years, what's going to happen in terms of salt? And the last one, he has less water, and that is also bad, very having a higher amount of salts. So with all these scenarios, these 6 scenarios that were conducted under this Riverland condition at 3 sites, that is Loxton, Vacre and Murray Bridge climatic conditions. So, and in two soils, that is one is the very light textured soils. If you see in the Riverland, on the highland we have very light textured soils, and on the depression we have a typical duplex soils, the sandy loam and then clay. So what's going to happen in these two situations? We have 6 scenarios, 3 sites, and 11 years. So starting from 2004-05 season till 2015. So this is the rainfall distribution, annual rainfall at Vacre. And if you see the average rainfall, that is over last 100 years, it is 260 at Vacre. Next one at the Murray Bridge, this is the rainfall for the modeling years. So this is a bit higher as compared to Vacre. And the third one is the Loxton. So Loxton and Vacre, they are quite similar. So I'm showing only the results for only 2 sites, that is Loxton and the Murray Bridge. So the approach here is water and salt balance modeling, and I have used the Horace model for doing this modeling studies. And of course, we have used all above ground parameters like and also the below ground and above ground parameters. If you see here, the transpiration, evaporation, runoff, rainfall, irrigation, and below ground, the root zone and capillarized deep drainage, all these things, they have been considered in this model. And we have just done the modeling for a decade. So before going to the results we have obtained, I'm just explaining how salts they are being added in our system. So every irrigation added some amount of salts in the soil system. So you see these are the different number of units for salinity, and one decimal how much salts they are added. And this is if we apply 1 megaliter of irrigation water having salinity 0.5 decimal, it adds 320 kilosalts per hectare. So we generally apply 3 to 5 megs of water. In some years we can apply higher as well when there is drought condition. So this is a whole lot of salts that are being added through irrigation. And if you see the salt that are taken up from the system, they are quite low. If you see here, so this is quite low. If we see the total balance in terms of balance, so this is the problem. If you see, we are adding on annual basis a huge number of salts into our system. So I'm just heading to the results. So I'm showing the water balance. So what's the impact of water balance under vineyards over this whole millennium drought and other conditions of 10 or 11 years. So transpiration, if you see under different situation under different scenarios, they in the light textured soils, it's almost similar. So if there is a reduction in irrigation application, that is the for the scenario D10% deficit and D20% deficit, there is a little bit low transpiration because we are applying less, but the impact is not so high, because that's why we our deficit irrigation strategy that is working under wine grapes. But if we reduce the amount of application during the drought period, so there is a subsequent and drastic reduction in the transpiration of the wine grapes. So this is happening when we are just reducing our application by 50% during that phase of the wine grape season. So, and in light textured soils, this salts addition doesn't have any impact on transpiration. So, and similarly, evaporation, there is no major impact. But if you see the drainage, this is the major impact happening of these different irrigation scenarios. So if we have less amount of irrigation application, the plant is able to extract whatever it needs, but ultimately the drainage, that is affected by the less application of the irrigation. And similarly in heavy textures, sorry. I'm really sorry. So in heavy textures, if you see during initial years, if you see here, during initial years, the leaching is very less. But during year 9-10, there is huge amount of leaching. So because there is huge rainfall, and that is really a big amount of leaching happening. So if we see the root zone salinity aspects, in Loxton in light textured soils, we don't have any problem because we have light textures, and whatever salts they are leached down into out of the system. But in heavy textures soils, if you see here at Loxton as well as at Murray Bridge, there is a lot of salt development in the root zone. The red line is the threshold value for the wine grapes. So, and if you compare between the two locations, the Loxton is worse affected as compared to salts because there is less rainfall and the leaching is less. In terms of annual salt leaching in different scenarios, if you see when we apply higher amount of salt irrigation in the last scenarios, we have a lot of salts that they are being leached because we are adding higher. So adding higher means leaching higher, because in light texture we don't have any kind of drainage issues. So whatever we are just adding, they are going down. But in heavy textures, initially we have issues with the drainage, and in 9-10 we have a big rainfall, and the salt leaching is quite high. So if in terms of annual salt leaching, it's quite variable. But if you see the decadal salt leaching, the difference between light and heavy texture soils is a bit low. If there is almost similar salt leaching in all, except when we have EC of higher EC irrigation. So, and then going to the concluding remarks. So water and salinity risk are interlinked. When we have less water, the salts are rising, and when we are higher amount of rainfall, they are being leached out of the system. And deficit irrigation impact on vineyard in terms of restricted less drainage and higher salinity build up in the soil system, and also later on higher leaching. And heavy soils are more prone to root zone salts as compared to light textured soils. Murray Bridge is less salinity than Loxton because we have higher rainfall. And average decadal salt leaching is a bit higher in heavy textured soils as compared to light. And salt loading even in full irrigation with good quality water, this is 1.5 ton, it's quite staggering amount. So if you see in the Riverland, we are just growing this vineyard on 20,000 hectares, so it would be 30,000 on annual basis. So it's 30,000 ton on annual basis. It's huge, and salt. It's really impact our salt interceptions schemes. And if you see the salt interception within our South Australian zone, there are 8 locations we are doing this, and 1 ton of salt interception needs 20 kilowatt hour energy. So it's a huge amount of cost if you are add more salt into our system. So that's what I want to just talk about. And the last one, definitely the pressure on the, and this is all what I wanted to say. Thank you for your kind attention.